about positive symptoms is also right as well. So what he does is he takes reference from Johnson's experiment, right? This is, I think, in your Oxford book. So Johnson does an experiment, and he does an experiment on people who have schizophrenia. It's a memory test, right? So 77 people who don't have schizophrenia plus 99 people who have schizophrenia, you can argue that it is generalizable. Anyways, see, basically, if the idea is if you normally want to remember a phone number, or if you want to normally remember things, right, when you're learning for exam, what you do is you kind of repeat it to yourself inside your mind, or if like you repeat a phone number inside your mind, right? If you want to remember it. And repeating things to yourself comes under classification of thoughts, inner speech. Now, let's suppose if you don't have the capacity to understand whether the thing that you repeated yourself is coming from you or another person, you're gonna think it as schizophrenia, hallucination, and hence you're not gonna be then focusing on remembering the information. You're rather gonna be focused on finding out where did this voice in your head came from. So similar idea, he gave people and control group memory tasks. Schizophrenic people perform bad on memory tasks because, again, memory includes self inner speech, but their inner speech got disturbed because this got disturbed, and hence they failed the memory task. People who are in the control group, they were able to do it perfectly because their this thing is not like central nervous system is not damaged. So hence this kind of proves that, or this acts as evidence that Fritz's theory for schizophrenia is somewhat valid for positive and negative symptoms. So you now kind of understand like Fritz's theory is subjective because there's no way we can scientifically. I'm not saying psychologically we can prove it. We cannot prove it scientifically. We cannot conduct science experiments on like meta representations and whatnot. So there's no proof whether these things even exist scientific or not. So hence, Fritz's theory is subjective as compared to other theories that you have. So that's one weakness of Fritz. Anyways, Fritz does give supporting experiments to support his theory, so that's a good thing that he did. So it does have empirical evidence, but does not have scientific evidence. Empirical evidence is research evidence. Scientific evidence is basically objective scientific evidence that could be tested. You don't have that. Uh, is it individual situational? It is completely individual because it's up to is because of the individual's dysfunction in their cognitive क्या कहते हैं cognitive processes which leads them to develop schizophrenia. So it's completely up to the individual. No situation over here. Is it reductionist? You may argue yes, you may argue no. If you say yes, it is reductionist, your basic go-to point will be that it only looks at cognitive aspects, no behavioral, no biological, no social aspects. If you say no, it's holistic, then your reason could be that he kind of like highlights why positive and negative symptoms happen both. So hence, he is number one considering both symptoms in regard, and number two, he has a comprehensive view of his cognitive processes. So because it's like multiple perspectives are being used to analyze positive negative symptoms in terms of meta representation, SAS and CMS. So you can say it is holistic because he's kind of like using many perspectives here to explain why different symptoms of schizophrenia happen. Um, is it deterministic? It is, well, you might say it's balcony. It won't be it won't be classified under that. So like that debate won't apply. Deterministic free will. Is it nature nurture? It's completely nurture because like you develop these things over time. You don't develop it overnight, so you develop gradually, especially the negative symptoms. So hence it is nurture. Um, yeah. So that's it for Frith, and that is for the entire explanation of why schizophrenia happens. All right. So one good thing about Frit is that like in Johnson's experiment, he used a valid memory test, so it adds validity to uh, Frit's claim about why the schizophrenia happened, etc. This slide won't be applicable here. All right. So this is what your CIE Julia Russell book has. It kind of like summarizes all three things that we've discussed, right? All three things together are collectively known as faulty information processing, right? Or cognitive deficit. But if you want to explain it in these regards, matter representation system, SAS and CMS, you can also do that if it's easy for you. Otherwise, you can use this example answer from CIE past papers as well, if you feel this is easier. Anyways, both answers are completely acceptable by CIE. All right. Why is this here? I have no idea why this here. All right. So this gives you a more detailed answer. This is the upgraded version of this one. So once they upgraded the syllabus, they kind of upgraded some words because you can see it's not copy paste, it's a bit different. So you can use this answer as well. Uh, in your black book, I guess it's known as metacognitive process. In some books, I think the Oxford book or the black book, I don't remember. Somewhere it's written faulty information process, somewhere it's the faulty metacognitive processes. Anyways, right? If you still have difficulty understanding it, because I had difficulty understanding it, you can use this explanation as well. There's no problem in that. All right. So, like as I said, they sometimes ask you to compare explanations for schizophrenia as in cognitive and genetic explanations. Write down one similarity, one difference. So again, as you can see, the difference can be given to the content itself, that like this is biological, that is cognitive, makes sense. But the difference can also be given on basis of evaluation points as well. Between one is nature, one is nurture, uh one is individual, one is situational, or both are individual. So your differences and similarities can also be given in terms of evaluation points as well. So you can use that as well. Yeah, like this. More reduction is less reduction, etc., etc. So, anyways, are all the causes understood? Are there any questions regarding the causes for schizophrenia? Mhm. Have I gone over the what's that? क्या था यार? Paper 4 section C thing question with you? Not once, कभी भी नहीं. जहाँ पे like for and against argue करना होता है for a particular statement that's given, कभी नहीं किया वो. All right, yes. All right, this one. Perfect. Cognitive explanations for schizophrenia ignore the effects of nature. Do you agree or not agree? Please discuss. All right. So again, whenever it says to what extent do you agree, right? You also should write to what extent do you disagree. So rule number one, you're gonna supposed to agree and disagree with the statement. You're supposed to give both sides of the argument. Number two, uh, for paper 4 section C and paper 4 section A, whatever you attempt in section A, उसका जो part D होता है, the part D, for example, abnormal psychology, section A, question part D, health psychology, whatever question you're going to attempt, उसका part D, right? ये लिखा होता है, include a conclusion in your answer. In every single part D, there's going to be include a conclusion in your answer, right? Over here as well. So you're supposed to include a conclusion in your answer in the part C, um, what you part C answer as well, even though you know the kawa nahi hai, but that's the general rule. Conclusion, part A and part C में आएगा, it's gonna come there. So most of the kids struggle in conclusion, even though it's only of 1 and 2 marks. But yeah, you're supposed to write that, otherwise your answer would not be complete. So like we're going to talk about how to write this answer and particularly how to formulate a conclusion as well. Anyways, what is the rule of thumb here? So let's take this question, right? And copy and paste. All right, so how do you attempt this question? Basically, what you're supposed to do is make 5 paragraphs. 5 paragraphs. 2 paragraphs are gonna support this claim or whatever the statement that's written above. 2 paragraphs are not gonna support this claim, right? And 1 paragraph is gonna be a conclusion. That's gonna be a conclusion. All right. So what are your possible answers in this? The basic idea is, right, whatever your CIE pattern is, CIE will ask questions in 2 ways. They're gonna ask question according to single isolated studies, as in give me summary for RABT, right? RABT is an isolated study. So your questions are going to be isolated study based or are going to be combined two studies within a section. What this means is there's 3 sections, right? I'm going to say 2 sections to keep it short. There's treatment sections and there's a causes section, right? So in treatment, you have for depression, let's suppose REBT, yes, we have CRT, we have ECT, and we have drugs. In causes, we have seligman, we have Beck, and we have like ORAC. So either they're gonna ask you a single isolated study, or they're gonna ask you about many different studies, but within a particular section, right? They're never gonna ask a question that combines treatment with causes. They're either going to ask a question about all of the causes or 2 causes or 1 causes or all of the causes, three treatment, all of the treatment, 3 treatment, 1 treatment. Never, they're going to never mix up both because these are separate sections. So treatment can never be asked along with causes and vice versa. So over here, if you look at that, right, cognitive explanations. So the possible answers are basically what you're going to refer to are gonna be limited to causes of schizophrenia. You can refer to the cognitive explanation, you can refer to the genetic explanation, you can refer to yeah, the dopamine hypothesis, right? So you can refer to other studies, but within a particular section, not treatments. So that's how CIE kind of functions around. So whenever you need to debate, whenever you need to compare, debate, compare, and evaluate. Debate, compare, evaluate, right? CDE, debate, compare, evaluate. It's always gonna be between studies of a particular section, never intersection, but intrasection. So you can refer to studies within a particular section. So you can refer to genetic dopamine and cognitive. But so cognitive explanation of schizophrenia ignore the effects of nature. Do you agree or disagree? So this is gonna take a bit of common sense as well as using other studies for support. So if we say, if like the opposite would be cognitive explanation, do not ignore the effects. Do not. And the other opposite would be does ignore the effects. So if we say that cognition explanation does ignore the effects of nature, we can either write it directly by saying that, hey, look at this study, there's nothing nature about it. So hence cognitive explanation ignores nature. We can do that. Or we can highlight these studies, the previous one. We can write, yeah, cognitive explanation ignores nature, but these guys don't. So this is nature and cognitive is nature. So you can use another study to support your point, or you can use this study to support your point as well. It can go either way. The reason I'm telling you that is sometimes matters on the content that you have to work with. So if you were to work with this one, right, you can say that this theory does not highlight the effect of nature because all of this symptoms, right, they appear gradually if there's dysfunction in these two. So hence, because of the symptoms getting developed over time, it highlights a nurture debate and not nature debate aspect regarding the cognitive approach. So that's one answer. You can say that in counter to it is, hold on, we're talking about emotions, etc., right? So even though the cognitive approach does not highlight how symptoms occur in terms of nature perspective, but the cognitive approach, especially meta representation system, when you talk about emotions, consist of a nature-based component, which is emotions, because they are programmed into us innately, right? No one actually teaches you what feelings are, emotions happen automatically because they are naturally innate in us. So you can say in that regard, cognitive aspect does not fully neglect the nature side of the explanation as it consists of emotions which are naturally present in an individual and are not developed inside an individual. So you can say cognitive explanation कुछ ना कुछ तो nature के बारे में रखता है indirectly. यहाँ पे तो नहीं बोलता लेकिन शायद emotion यहाँ पे है. The emotions natural, so hence that's why. So that's two sides of the debate satisfied. uh so there's one support, one against. We need one more support, one more against. All right, so you can say that cognitive explanation does not support the क्या कहते हैं, the nature side of the debate because uh the entire framework is based on cognitive or cognition, right? And Frisch theory, right, does not talk about the genetic component or the dopamine hypothesis, whereas Gottman Shield, right? Whereas the dopamine hypothesis all talk about a biological component, Gottman Shield being genetics, dopamine hypothesis being the neurotransmitter and the receptor, which is both biological, and hence other explanations, specific genetic and dopamine hypothesis, highlight a more nature-oriented view than Fritz's cognitive explanation for schizophrenia. So by support, एक तरीके से by supporting the other theories, you're going against this theory, right? So that's how you can like formulate your point के अगर यहाँ से point नहीं मिल रहा तो दूसरे theories को इस्तेमाल करके अपना point generate कर सकते हो because you can do that within a particular section. You're allowed to do that. All right. So like question I remember. The study that we said that can we use that in support? Uh, you see the question is not whether uh, other studies use nurture approach. The question is whether cognitive uses nature approach. So the way you're gonna say this is, अगर तुमने adoption वाली study तो बोल दी, and then you highlight के देखो देखो genetic approach के अंदर भी nurture का aspect आ रहा है. How would this reflect back on the actual question? Uh, is क्या कहते हैं कहाँ गया ये वाला. So you have to prove and disprove this, right? So by saying कि उस study का ना nurture है, but this doesn't do anything to this, right? इसको address नहीं हुआ. So yeah, you can mention it, but it's not gonna do anything क्योंकि ये address नहीं हो रहा है यहाँ पे. You have to write something that addresses this directly and indirectly. तो अगर नर्चर लिखा होता, नर्चर यहाँ पे नर्चर लिखा होता, देन तुम वो ये वाला अडॉप्शन वाला बोल सकते, देखो देखो सिर्फ कॉग्निटिव कॉग्निटिव में नर्चर नहीं है, बाकी जगह में नर्चर है. यहाँ पे वो सीन नहीं, यहाँ पे नेचर की बात है. दैट्स व्हाई आई फील कि it's going to be very difficult to connect your adoption wise study with the topic of the debate. So that's a problem that I see. Otherwise, अगर मैं कोशिश करना कर लो, but it's gonna be very difficult to do that. So that's my take. So like we are done with two support and one against. So uh yeah, we need to come up with one more that goes against this statement that claims that cognitive जो approach right uh, does not affect ignore the factor nature. So we need to find one more point that supports the nature side of the debate within cognitive theory, um, which is gonna be क्या होगा? Hmm. Hmm. What you guys think क्या हो सकता है इसमें? Nature side of the debate support करने का directly and indirectly. Again, it's not brain area, बता मैं, it's not brain areas, it's not brain areas. These are cognitive या metacognitive processes. Brain areas नहीं बोलेंगे इसको. These are not physical brain areas. It's a cognitive process. The brain areas नहीं बोलेंगे. So fifth explanation of the three cognitive areas is reflected in how the individual responds in a physical capacity. Okay, सही है. But nature side of the bit, I'm gonna say that when Frith argues कि यहाँ पे मसला होता है, इसका मसला है कि जो नॉर्मल बंदा होगा ना, नॉर्मल बंदे के पास ये ऑटोमेटिकली होगा जिसके बेस पे वो ये कर सकता है. So even though Frit talks about इसका dysfunction, Frit does not say exactly कि ये originate कहाँ से होता है. What I can gather from this is अगर बंदा सही ही है, सही सलामत है, तो I would say कि कुदरती तौर पे, नेचुरल तौर पे ये शुरू से पैदाइशी तौर पे ये सही हुआ हो, सही होगा इसका. बाद में जाके स्किज़ोफ्रेनिया होता है तो ये डैमेज आता है. So I'm gonna say the ability to distinguish your own inner speech from your own or auditor hallucination is an innate function, and hence I'm gonna say that the central monitoring system component of its meta cognition may consist of a nature-based phenomena as being able to differentiate between between your thoughts and hallucination is something that is innate and is not learned by individual, it's automatically processed. Hence, even though Fritz's theory does not directly support the nature side of debate, it consists of elements that hint towards the nature perspective of the debate. So I'm gonna write that. By the way, are you guys able to understand the points that I like we're discussing here for support and for against? Yeah, like थोड़ा मुश्किल हो रहा है to like follow it कि क्या हो रहा है यहाँ पे. Like तुमको like the points that we're gonna use in support and against, right? समझ में आ रहा है कि exactly क्या बोला जा रहा है? Or are you guys lost? All right. Manal क्या scene है? And Manal is not here. All right. All right, Manal's not here. So, okay. So conclusion, right? How you're supposed to write the conclusion, what the conclusion is. Again, conclusion के rules होते हैं. End में आता है number two. कोई new point नहीं डालोगी. कोई old point को repeat नहीं करोगी. You won't repeat a new old point, and you won't introduce a new point. You will not side with any argument, so you're gonna remain neutral, right? Neutral रहोगी. And yeah, balanced view रहना चाहिए तुम्हारा. How one's no outweighing, no outweighing, nothing outweighs the other. Yeah, that's the rule. You're not supposed to outweigh one another. So you're supposed to give a middle ground. कि भाई ऐसा दो लोग लड़ रहे हैं and you're supposed to say one thing that makes both of them happy. That's what you're supposed to do. So you're supposed to say something like this. And there's keywords यहाँ पे, keywords that you're gonna use that kind of gives the balanced view. In conclusion, right, the cognitive explanation schizophrenia does नहीं लिखूंगा मैं लिखूंगा ठीक है may adds a bit of flexibility rather than does. May favor the nurture side of the explanation over nature, but there are some some elements within the meta cog ये matter अपन जो भी matter क्या कहते हैं cognitive process that account for a nature side to the debate. Having said that, yeah, hence, while looking at causes, we may be well, we may we may look at other explanations as well that fully highlight the nature aspect for schizophrenia. So, along with the cognitive explanation, so a holistic view can be acquired. Okay, so it's like you're saying कि भाई cognitive approach जो है दोनों के साथ फेवर करता है दोनों का फेवर करता है right and you could something like हम दूसरे भी दे सकते हैं लेकिन दूसरे जब देखेंगे तो cognitive को भी इग्नोर नहीं करेंगे क्योंकि हमें holistic view चाहिए तो like this kind of gives a neutral view okay, like how both should be favored, how both should be looked, how all the perspectives should be looked, how all of the perspectives combined will be a holistic view, something like that. So like you're gonna talk about including everything of it. So that's your conclusion. Are there any questions, Yapit? All right, हलीमा मनाल को भी बता देना कि this is the homework for you guys. ठीक है. जो इसका original question है, this is the one. It's like paper 42 2020 के अंदर है, March 20 paper 42 के अंदर. So this is the original question. This is your homework. So like you're given the homework for section C for the first time. ठीक है. All right, then I'm gonna sign off. Office.